Hello and welcome to Mindset Kitchen. My name is Diana Paliokaite and I have a beautiful guest with me. I straight away sensed your energy when you walked in. I was like, yes, we're going to have a great episode. Her name is Cara Cunniff, a former British Army officer, global citizen who lived across 4 countries. Her journey spans from culinary training to adventures of ultra marathons in Sahara and a swim across Alcatraz shark-invested waters.
Absolutely.
Hello, Cara.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I am so excited because after reading this and making the smallest summary of actually who you are as a person and your journey in your life, I am excited for you to share with us today your mindset messages as well as your career, as well as your personal challenges. So, Cara, this was a little introduction. I hope I've done justice for now, but I'll give it to you now to
Thank
introduce
you.
yourself a little bit more.
So, where do I start? My journey has been through connection. Everything I have done has been about people and connection. And that's because I've moved 32 times. I've moved 32 times in the UK and Germany and France, twice in France, and also Belgium. And I did a little stint in the US. So, really, I've experienced lots of different cultures, lots of different people and perspectives and assumptions and judgments. And all of that, I think, has made me a better person and has allowed me now, in hindsight, to look back and take all that experience and use it in the work that I do on a daily basis. And it gives me real joy to see that I can now bring the work I've done throughout many years from leadership, which came from military experience primarily, to performance from, as you've mentioned, the ultramarathons, Ironman, escaping from Alcatraz, which is possible nowadays, and also from a perspective of emotions. And that's really where my passion lies, and how we can improve workplaces when we acknowledge that we have an emotional culture. So there is a lot of different things in there. I have 3 children, and my children are based in the UK. I spend my time between Paris and London. So my husband works in the embassy in Paris, and so I have the joy of being with a lot of people, connecting with a lot of people in the diplomatic sphere, as well as being a mum to my kids who are at boarding school in the UK.
That is still a smaller summary, because what I want to understand, how did you end up in the military?
Okay, yeah, well, it started off at university. So before that, I had a business degree, but while I was at university studying business, I joined the Officer Training Corps. The military had always been in the background. I had actually undertaken a week's work experience at the age of 16 with the Women's Royal Army Corps, which doesn't exist anymore. That has been brought into lots of other different units now. And I joined the Officer Training Corps, where I met my husband, I will add, in that space. So here we joyously are 30 years later, but we met in that space as well. And I just fell in love with putting on army gear, being in green, wearing mud on my face, and literally that's where it started.
Wow.
The honest element of it. But actually, what I recognised then was that the military is something bigger than me, and it offered me a real purpose beyond myself. And I think we all need that in life. We all need to have something that's bigger than ourselves, where we're contributing and making the world, it's a big statement, but making the world better in whatever small way that we can through having that bigger purpose. And so for me, the military offered that to me, and it was a lot of fun while I was at university. And then I went into the Royal Engineers, and that's where my first message actually comes out, which is all about curiosity. And Actually, it was a really tough time. I had a really tough time in the early years of being a female. We're looking at the end of the 1990s. So there were very few females who served in the British military at that time. And so in essence, for any of those women who were in that role at the time, we were really trailblazing to find our place within what was a male-dominated environment. And I think for me, I had to really lean into curiosity. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but I knew that I had to ask questions. I was a young officer in the Royal Engineers. I didn't know really very much about engineering. Royal Engineers, building bridges, blowing up bridges. What did I know having left university with a business degree? So that was a time where I felt very vulnerable. I felt very exposed. And so leaning into curiosity and by asking lots of questions, by speaking to those people, around me to help me to grow and to understand was a really, really important factor of my growth, actually. But that vulnerability meant that I had to be kind to myself. And I think when, we're often exposed in an environment where we're not comfortable, we can put up our defenses. It's very, very easy to put on a mask. And actually, what I recognized was I was wearing a mask. I was wearing, a uniform, and I had a facade of, I'm okay, I'm fine. How often do you hear people say, I'm fine?
All the
I'm fine.
time.
Yeah.
But I was told, British people told me that fine is not fine.
Absolutely.
So when I say fine now, I feel like I'm British, because when I say fine, I'm not fine. So I usually use that in a kind of fake manner, as the British culture says, I'm fine. But and as you, sorry, we interrupted that as well. But because as a female as well, you had to perhaps be like men to be in that environment, and so you had to appear tough, you had to act tough, and I imagine there were times where it's perhaps you reflecting over the past, 15, 10 years, you're reflecting back and learning more and more from that experience. But at that time, did you have time to kind of reflect and say, what, it's okay, I'll show my emotion, or you literally had to go through with it, and then there was a time when you finished with that career, then you reflected it?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think when I was in it, I was in a space of being reactive, if I'm really honest. I've never been somebody who, when somebody asks me, how do you feel? How are you? And I'm fine. I've never really been very, very good at saying I'm fine. What tends to happen is I say, well, you've asked me how I feel, so I'm going to tell you how I feel. Well, actually, I don't feel so great. This is difficult for me. And maybe I'm not coping very well. So I think probably there were times where I had this facade. I was in the uniform, and I knew it was important for me. I knew it was important for women in the forces, that we had to get this right. As a unit, we had to get this right. I was the only female, and we had to get it right because I was leading the way for other females coming through. And I knew that actually there was a lot of feeling at the time, we don't want women here. They can't do the same things that we do. And that's a very honest observation. And I know that actually will make some people uncomfortable by me saying that, but it was the truth. And I see how far we have come now in that evolution of women, not just in the military, but in any front line. Maybe that's within the NHS, maybe that's within the fire service, maybe that's within the paramedics. I see how far women have come from a frontline perspective, but also in business. You know, when you look at the numbers of female who are now CEOs of you know, large corporates and large organizations, global organizations across the world, you know, it's tough. And I think it's very tough for anybody when they are in a when they are looking to challenge the diversity within that space.
Completely agree,
At some stage, somebody has to stand up and say, this isn't good enough. You know, we need to change this. And I feel very fortunate that I'm now in the space where I talk about emotions within organizations, that we can address this through asking, how do you want your people to feel in this organization so that they're successful? You know, it's a really important question. How do you as a leader want your people to feel? How as a leader do you want to feel to be successful? Have you even considered that you have emotions that tie to how you behave every single day in your family, in the workplace? You know, there isn't a line here when it comes to emotions. We're in an emotional state at every single instant.
Yeah.
It's just whether we're at this end of it or at that end of it. Or maybe we're just somewhere in the middle. Yeah. And, you know, we are experiencing, you know, an emotional state. And that will bring us together. There will be a connecting here, a building of a relationship, a bond, because of how we're feeling. And that's the same within teams. It's no different. You know, if teams address how they feel how they want to feel to be successful, then they've got a blueprint as, you know, this is what it looks like to be successful, and this is how we can show up and achieve more of those good emotions. And then the flip side, you know, how do we not want to feel to be successful? But we might from time to time. Because actually, if we address that space, if we address the space where, you know, I don't want to feel like this. You know, maybe I come into a meeting and I think, I can't say I'm new here, and you know, I don't know, I don't know the people in the room, and I feel exposed, and I just don't really want to say what I feel. How do we help those people be able to express, you know, what their thoughts are? Because when we do that, what you get are more engaged people. You get better productivity. You know, there's a report that Gallup have just put out, you know, talking about the numbers behind emotions in the workplace, behind, you know, how people feel impact engagement, how people feel impact productivity, and, you know, it's real stuff. It all begins with how you feel.
Thank you.
And it's a missing link.
Thank you for sharing that. You almost took me back to my banking days when I worked in a corporate environment, and I could see, whilst you were talking, I could hear you, but I also could see myself sitting in the meeting rooms or having performance review, for example, and feeling okay, but inside you are either burning or boiling or saying help, and you're not allowed. You're almost not allowed because you will be looked at funny, and you don't want to be looked at funny, or someone will judge you. So there is that fine balance, and I really appreciate what you do, Cara, because we need that. We need more people like you who do that and introduce that and make us feel comfortable to share how we feel. Yes, I think, and again, there has to be a first person, the leader, who invites that. Yeah. And then everyone will follow. And the leader needs to be brave to do that in those environments, to show emotion, especially men. For women, I think women show a bit more emotion, but they tend to squash that as well in an environment where we have lots of men. We have to run the company, so therefore I am tough. Yeah. And I've seen both sides, and I've been on those sides where I'm expected to be tough and vice versa. But I remember something came up to me as well when I had people reporting into me. There was opportunity for me to be me and to be understanding and emotional, and I really tried, and I think we had a really nice connection with our team, and it works. connecting with emotion, it really works, because people respect you, people approach you, people happier, and when happier, more productivity and everything grows. But I know we literally drifted off.
I know.
We brought, because I could sense the reason I said your experience is so rounded, so enriching, and I can sense that from the stories, that little bit snapshots that you told, and I can see why you're doing what you're doing, and it's beautiful. But you mentioned the first, that message, and I'm going to read a little bit of this message now, because you started on the curiosity path, and see if anything else comes up to you when I read this message. So Cara's first message was curiosity, the courage to ask, the openness to listen, and the compassion to understand. Tell me a little bit more. The compassion to understand, I can see that as well, and especially in the environments where people are struggling or stress, and someone is listening, like a manager. Having that compassion could change things.
So often when we talk about emotion, we come from a place of negativity. It's the go-to. We say something about emotion and we then say, oh, that must be negative. But it doesn't have to be. And I sort of front end that, because curiosity, I think, isn't just about seeking answers. It's not just about, I'm just interested in how you feel, for example. What it is, it's about, actually, I'm interested, so I'm going to ask you some questions to give me some more clarity, and to show me, I'm asking you to show me some insights into what's going on in your world. And then what I need to do is I need to be open. I need to be open to listen to what you're saying, not what I'm thinking. And that's really important, because we come into every experience with assumptions, with previous experience.
You can't change that, can you?
No.
It's just always going to be
there. It's there. It's part of us. It's part of what makes us beautiful, is that we have this experience. Now, some of those experiences may not have been great, but there is somewhere in that, with some reflection, a way to see something that you can take from that to either do good or to enable yourself to be happier from that movement forward, because often that can be in a space where, it's uncomfortable. So it's about, the openness to listen to what the other person is saying. And then it's about the compassion. And I say compassion from two perspectives. So compassion, firstly, is, am I being kind to myself in this space? I'm, as I gave an example earlier about, being a solo female at the time in an organisation, the British military, in my unit. And, I had to acknowledge and give myself compassion that it was okay to be alone for that period. So I was leaning in and I was curious, but I had to give myself compassion that it was okay to be solo for a while.
That's a very powerful thought.
And I think the other side is to look at it from the compassion for others, because, we may be curious and maybe they will challenge our assumptions. That's where the openness also comes in, being open to being challenged, that my way isn't the right way, your way isn't the right way. There will be somewhere a collaboration of the right way. And through that compassion, we are looking at their experiences, their perspective. What have they gone through? What are they experiencing that I'm not seeing? And maybe through that curiosity, I see something that comes from a place of openness, not judgment, from openness, where I can grow. I will grow in that space. And then maybe we can move forward in our relationship, because we've had that curiosity piece. And actually, I sometimes see that as sharing curiosity. So if I show somebody else curiosity, it's that show, not tell. If I show you curiosity, maybe somewhere else in the day, you will show that curiosity to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because you've experienced it. So I think for me, it isn't just about curiosity. It sits hand in hand with compassion.
That's beautifully explained, actually. And curiosity and openness is when you said something, curiosity to ask, but also to listen.
Yes.
Because
absolutely.
there are loads of situations where I remember I want to know the question, but then I interrupt the person after when they answer me, and I did not give enough space to listen. I think through my coaching, my studying coaching, I've learned to listen. And that was so different than I ever thought that I am a good listener. No, I was not at that time. Now I understand what listening is, and allowing that space to open up so that even the pause, the person still comes back and says something, and that pause, giving that pause is so beautiful and powerful. So I could completely relate to that message as well. But by the way, Cara, do you know there is food here as well?
I know, we're so into the conversation.
I better get cooking,
Yes.
but Cara doesn't know what I'm cooking yet. You could guess from some of the spread out ingredients here. But when I asked what Cara would like me to cook for her, she said chicken. She loves chicken. She loves tomatoes, cheese. And I thought, well, I have just a dish. And I tested this dish on Monday myself, and it was absolutely delicious. So I thought Cara will enjoy me actually taking all the ingredients of her likeness, albeit I know she's a foodie, so she'll like everything. But I decided to cook a grilled chicken. It's kind of a skillet of chicken, tomato-y, cheesy sauce. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to serve it with fresh pasta and a toasted baguette there and a bit of salad. But it's for you to choose what you would prefer to eat it with. I tried with pasta, it's delicious. I tried with bread, it's delicious. And I tried with both of them at the same time, and it was delicious. So I will serve you with all of those, and you can pick and choose and see how you like. So what I'm going to do, this is going to make a little bit of noise whilst people on the audio hearing it. What I'm going to put is garlic salt, or just dried garlic, sorry, rather than garlic salt. A bit of Spanish paprika here.
Yummy.
And some black pepper. I'm going to turn it around and do the same, and I'm going to fry these fillets. And then afterwards, I don't want to interrupt our conversation. So what I will do afterwards, when the chicken breast brown, I will add butter, garlic, shallot, some white wine. There will be tomato paste, chicken stock, and crushed tomatoes. There will be some fresh tomatoes, and I'll finish with some black Kalamata olives, which is kind of addition to my recipe because it just needed a bit something else. And I thought, you know what, olives would do well. So I've added that in there. And would you like to proceed to your second message now? I think it kind of ties in really nicely.
I will. And I just have to add, I'm so looking
Please.
forward to this. I am so looking forward to this. And this is my children, pasta or bread. You know, that is ticks every single box for them. So
I
this
hope
is
it
glorious.
ticks yours
Well,
as
absolutely will tick my box. Yes.
If not, I'll have to invite your children instead.
Yes. Well, maybe they would be here in a heartbeat.
Wonderful. But it's, you know, it's sometimes it's one of those dishes that actually tastes better than it looks or smells. I promise.
Oh yeah.
You will be surprised.
So I think actually, can I just add something based on what you said about the gift of? I see giving someone space to answer the question that you've asked. I see it as a gift. You know, often you're right. We ask a question because we want to tell you something else. So we ask the question, but actually, by asking the question and giving them the gift of the space to talk, it's you know, giving them that openness. And I think we can all learn from that. You know, I remember when I started coaching, I did not get it because I asked questions because I wanted to tell them something else. So actually, the gift of the pause is so important. And I think actually that feeds really nicely into the second message, which actually is you know, it all begins with emotions. And the reason I think that ties with the pause is that sometimes when we are in an emotional space, both a desired emotional space or a undesired emotional space. And I'll explain in a moment. I choose those words very carefully.
Desired and undesired.
Desired and undesired. The pause allows you to take a moment. If you are in a space where you feel that you are going to react, what that does, you're actually giving yourself the gift of the pause to allow your body just to temper into whatever is happening. And that could be a situational experience. Something's happening around you where your emotions are, maybe joyous or maybe not so joyous. Maybe they're undesired. Maybe there's a feeling of anger in that space. And so what that pause does, the gift to yourself, is it just allows you to recognize what is happening to yourself and that you do have a choice. And it's in that space that we have that choice of how we are going to respond. I use desired and undesired because for me, a feeling of joy in a particular context and with my life experience may be a positive experience. But for somebody else, because of a situation, it may be the same situation, but they are not experiencing joy. They are experiencing maybe frustration. And two people can be looking upon the same situation, and because of their backgrounds, experiences, the sensory inputs are then displaying in a way to the body that is a state of joy or a state of frustration.
Yeah.
So I think that the message I want to give there is that, we come into everything from our own perspective. And it's that curiosity piece again, being curious as to what's happening for somebody else actually might allow us to experience that moment in a different way. I ran a workshop recently, and a client, a leader in the workshop, he recognized that he felt alone. Now, when we had the initial conversation, he said, well, I don't really feel, I don't really bring any feelings into the workplace. I just go in and do my job. And I explained that, in any workplace, like in any home environment, or any group of people in any environment, there is an emotional culture, whether you like it or not. It is there.
Yeah.
So those times where we believe that emotions should be left at the door, and I do hear it.
Yeah. But how? Impossible. We are human beings.
We're human beings. Exactly. So this particular leader recognized that he felt alone, and for him it was such an enlightening moment.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because he said, now I recognize that I feel alone. I can do something about it. I can start to embed some changes into my day, my habits, my rituals, that will then allow me to move away from feeling alone, to reduce that feeling, and to then increase and foster another desired emotion. So, emotions are all around us. They are, in every team meeting, in every family table, when we sit down and share a meal, which I encourage wholeheartedly, those conversations around the table, it's your world. They are so critical to how we experience every single day. And we are only on this earth for a really short space of time. So we want those conversations to be positive, and we want to bring the desired emotions to the table.
And Cara, also to add to that, the second message was emotion drives everything we do. Also from neuroscience perspective as well, because a thought, emotion, and then the action followed. Why we tend to squash the idea of emotion and think that the action followed was based on my thought alone, but it's always based on how you feel, what you obviously learn, and all the other aspects that you mentioned earlier. But the emotion is the first trigger that your body feels instantly, right? So in a sense, actually, this is what drives us, exactly how you say. The emotion drives us rather than the thought or perhaps my experience, because the emotion is the first thing that essentially hits you.
It is. You're right. It's the first thing you experience, and well, actually, that's not completely true. What actually is happening is when we bring our experiences from the past, our assumptions, our perspectives, our beliefs, and we then add what is happening around us, our body reacts in certain ways. So we take in all of this information, and our body and all of the neurotransmitters in our body will be working really, really hard to manage and to send information around the body. And essentially that's what we are. We are a vehicle of information and data that is being passed through our body. When that emotion goes to our brain, we then process it, and that comes out in a feeling. So it's lots and lots of data that our body is taking in. But what also feeds into that, did you sleep well last night?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I didn't, by the way.
No. I can't tell.
Thank you.
But questions like to ask yourself, did I sleep well last night? Have I hydrated myself well enough today? Have I done some exercise this morning? Maybe it was a brisk walk, maybe 10 minutes, that brisk walk. All of that also feeds into how we will experience every single day. And I think the thing to think about emotions is it's experience. It's how we are experiencing that moment. And it's not just, it's not just our belief set. It's not just the environment. It's whether we have fed well, slept well, hydrated ourselves. Those are important questions that we should all be asking ourselves. And then we will act in a certain way. But it's critical to understand that we have a choice in that moment. I know what it's like when sometimes that feeling of road rage, and I don't use that word lightly. I genuinely don't use that word lightly. But I've spent a lot of time in Paris, and I've spent a lot of time driving around the Arc de Triomphe. I don't live that far from the Arc de Triomphe, and when you drive onto that roundabout, and for those who maybe aren't aware,
taxi is enough to be in there.
Yes, and you have to drive on. You don't stop at the roundabout. You drive on. And you accelerate on, and the moment you accelerate on, you then brake, and you just hope that everybody else around you is doing the same thing. And it can, it can bring all sorts of states to the front. So, actually, what I do before I approach those situations, if I know that this is a situation I might find difficult, it's to do some of those bits of pre-work, so that behaviour doesn't manifest itself. So, for example, if I know I'm going into a difficult meeting, or if I know that, maybe I'm going in and I'm managing, I'm facilitating some conflict resolution. And, that's some of the work I do with leaders. We've got some conflict, we need a resolution, but my job is to facilitate. And I have to prepare myself in that space before I go into that meeting, because I need to be able to put my best foot forward so that I can then enable and facilitate those involved in that conversation to bring them their best selves to the table, so that they behave in a way that is going to afford resolution and is going to afford progress and being able to move forward. And that's things like breath work.
I was going to ask, what do you do then if you had a bad night's sleep and you are not feeling in the mood, but you want to be completely opposite? So breath work.
I was fortunate enough last year to undertake a breathwork program for a couple of weeks in the morning, 6 a.m. in the morning. And I learnt how to breathe. And you know, as strange as that may sound, because it's something we do naturally, I learnt how to use my body to breathe in a way that was going to enhance my state, my performance, and my ability to think when it was tough. Because that's what happens when we become, and I would say undesired emotionally, actually both ways, but in the space where we want to move away from the undesired, actually, you know, we want to be able to think clearly. And of course, the moment we go into an emotional space, and you know, undesired emotional space, we stop being able to think clearly. So what this does is this enables you to get yourself back into, you know, the thinking brain, for want of a better description. So, you know, it's as simple, you know, if you are about to go into a meeting, it's as simple as box breathing. And that's just breathing in for 2, holding for 2, breathing out for 2, and holding for 2. And you just go through this, and you hear my voice has slowed down, and it's just a case of, and you know, visually, we see it visually happen. Just bring up your 2 fingers and just move along and down and hold. And I'll just do it once more. It's so breathe in for 2, hold for 2, breathe out for 2, and hold for 2. And if you do that 10 times, what will happen is the body will just start to bring a calmness. And it will allow you to start to process again through the thinking brain. And actually, breath work is used by the British Special Forces. They use this before they deploy into a theatre of operation that, you know, potentially is going to be difficult. And they do this not, yes, to bring a calmness, but to allow them to move back into a thinking mind, so that they move in to whatever they're about to do through thought, through clear thought. You know, we know those moments where we're going on stage. Maybe we're going to do you know, we've got a TEDx, for example. We're going to do a TED talk, or we're running a workshop. Or it could be as simple as you're at home and you know you've got to have that conversation with, you know, a teenager about something that could be difficult. You know, and I know in my world with my kids, sometimes that's about social media, you know, amount of social media usage. So, you know, we all have these conversations. So how do we get ourselves into that best position to enable us to perform? Because that's what we want to do. We want to be able to perform in that space.
So breath work is something that I am currently really embracing as well, but I would have never thought it. Everything started when my life gone slightly upside down, because I did then yoga meditation and I thought that was just boring things to do. And breath work now, it comes into my meditations when I do certain type of meditations, when I do like 4 in and 4 out and so on. But I don't think so. When I speak about breath work as well with some of the people, and I don't think people believe that it could work. And it's such a simple thing as humans can do. And that lack of belief really lacks curiosity, right? And the curiosity of exploring and trying different things. And I could say miracles do happen from the simplest things. And breath work is beautiful. I think it's slowly people embracing it, but it's quite new still, I think. And you said breath work. Anything else would you do apart from it? It sets you really nicely, breath work already.
Yes.
Obviously, meditation perhaps?
Yes. I have never, you know, being very honest about this, I have never really got to grips with meditation. And I really want to, and I do it because I want to. I have had one experience where I meditated, and then suddenly it was 20 minutes later and I was sitting up, and I have no idea what happened in that space, but I know that I was in a meditative space. So I know, it worked, because actually when I came around after 20 minutes, I was still sitting up. So I wasn't lying down and had gone to sleep. I was sitting up and I felt joyous. And for me, it was very much about being led in that meditation. And I was in a space where I was led by somebody in the room. There were a bunch of us who were being led by a breathwork practitioner. So that was a joyous experience. I think for me, the other thing really is about exercising and exercising when it's tough, when it's hard, when you're busy. Actually, it's probably more important when you're busy to find the time to do that little bit of exercise, to get out for that run, to do a 10-minute walk. My family at the moment have a press-up challenge. Driven by my husband, who is still serving in the military. And so he does 100 press-ups every day, and he's building that, I think. I'm not sure where we're going with him. But for myself and my kids, press-ups have never really been a particularly strong point for me. So I'm on just 10 a day, but 10 a day. And, my aspiration by the end of this year, and actually I'm hoping it will be before then, but is to be up to 100 regular press-ups, a day. That's what I'd like to be in. And, and I know, because I know that, this is all your sort of world as well. You enjoy,
I love it,
the sporty world, setting stretch boundaries, or setting stretch goals, which has always made me tick. Wanting to achieve something that I didn't think was possible.
Yeah.
And I think, there are lots of things in the world that, in daily life we can do that we never think is possible. I raced an ultra marathon in the Sahara Desert.
Oh God, tell me about it. Sounds difficult.
It was long. It was one step in front of another. I mean, actually,
That's
what? It wasn't.
Next step.
It was just the next step.
Yeah.
And I actually, when I finished, so the race is 6 marathons in 7 days across the Sahara Desert. So we had temperatures up to 40 degrees, and you carry all your food. You carry everything except for water for your 7-day race. And the long day is a 50-miler. So mindset is really, really important on those days, and it is about small steps, just one step in front of the other. One step more is one step that I didn't have to go. I had done it. But the interesting thing is, when I finished, I came over the line, and this is going back a number of years. And I think I had a little bit of kind of imposter syndrome going on, because I said to my husband on a satellite phone, I just finished and I had access to a satellite phone. And I said to him, what, if I can do this, anyone can do this. And, I have really reflected on that. What does that tell me about me? What does that tell me about, I don't know, what does that tell me? And I'm not sure I even still know the answer to that. I reflect on this stuff, over years about, what does that tell me about performance, about, did I feel I should have gone faster? And there's the should word, that should word that we use a lot that can be very dangerous, because I'm putting that word on myself. So, and actually, I think the one thing I want to share is there is so much more in every single one of us to achieve more, to be more, to believe that we're capable of more. And I think probably that's what I learned, do in that racing period was, I had never thought I could complete these ultra marathons, and I did. And I'm just me. I'm not a pro athlete. Yes, I've fitness has been part of my life, but notwithstanding that, I am just a regular woman who set my mind to something
Yeah.
and put the graft in. And I think that's the thing here, is that you don't earn that glory on the day that you finish. You earn it in every single training session that runs up to it. You earn it when you go out and it's raining and it's cold and you don't feel like it. That's when you earn that medal, when you cross the line. So, for all those London marathon runners who are prepping for April, that's when you earn it. You earn it when it's hard and tough before it, because on the day, there are people to cheer you and support you. And yes, it's hard. It's hard. But it's also really exciting.
You took me on a journey again, Cara. But not that I don't listen. I'm a good multitasker with my brain, so I'm listening and almost connecting my emotion to what you're telling, because you're really having this emotion with me here today. And it reminds me of something as well. Who I am just me, or if they can do it, maybe I can do it. And I had very similar experience, which changed everything to me and for me. And it led me on this path as well, is when I went to see medium for the first time when my husband passed away.
Yes.
And I wanted to know if my husband is okay, and I knew he was trying to reach out to me, but I wasn't able to do all of these things. I never even believed in a sense, or never thought about it, so not necessarily belief. But when he's done the reading for the first time, I left, I closed the door, and my friend at that time, he took me there. He waited for me, and I said to him, he's a human and I'm a human. If he can do it, I can do it too. And then I learned mediumship and I did it. And so now many times, unless you have certain, of course, there will be certain difficulties, challenges, or let's say physical and mental. But when you feel, I want to really do it, you overcome so many things, because at the end of the day, we're all the same.
Absolutely.
So listening to you running ultramarathon, I could do it. Don't know if I want to.
And there is
but
the thing.
I could do it.
Yes, absolutely. There's the thing. Do you want to?
Yeah.
And that's the honest question to ask yourself. Do you want to?
Yeah.
And actually, on the races that I have subsequently raced in, and during the Marathon des Sables, there were some children in wheelchairs being led by teams over sand dunes that I could barely walk up. And I know subsequently there have been people, a gentleman who is blind and has been led. And, we just see the Paralympic Games. What is possible when you set your mind to something and
goosebumps.
Yeah, absolutely, goosebumps. It is possible. And I was in Paris during the Olympics, and the Paralympics, if you want inspiration, it's in that.
Yeah.
My daughter worked in the GB Paralympic House, and she was 18 at the time. And I have to say, I think probably for someone who is relatively young, she's 18, she said it was one of the most life-changing experiences working in the Paralympic House with these incredible athletes and what they have achieved. And I can feel that I'm choking here, because it is emotive, and it's important, and it's real that everybody feels they have the opportunity to excel to their best potential, whatever that might be.
And Cara, I hope people watching this actually can truly relate and truly be inspired, because I was listening and I think I just had almost like a boost. I know my mindset, and I know that I am invincible. I said recently to my good friend, I've gone through unimaginable, so now nothing is impossible. But sometimes you kind of go back and, who am I to do this? Who am I? And then people like you come to my kitchen and then just give me this massive boost. And I hope people felt it, because it was just beautiful what you were describing. And that's where we were saying, if they can do it, we can do it. If you can do it, I can do it. It's just believing yourself and taking you through those stages, because we're all human and we are so powerful. And I think that's the reason actually I set up Mindset Kitchen, is to show how powerful we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And hopefully I'm succeeding.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll take you to the third message now, because things were happening in the background here. I've toasted some bread. The chicken is gone in the oven, and it's just going to grill a little bit and ready almost. And I'm just going to put a little bit of fresh pasta in a couple of minutes.
Delicious.
But in the meantime, we have to go through your wonderful third message, which is growth happens in the quiet moments. Love it. Tell me more.
So it comes back, there is a full circle in my messages, which is about space and giving yourself space and time to think and to reflect. And sometimes that's through the hard stuff. And we might not like stepping into that space. And so for me, I had a period of time where I had a very difficult relationship with my father. I always had a very difficult relationship with my father. And when it came to my wedding, my father was always very opinionated and had he was giving very clear direction in terms of how my wedding day was going to pan out, all the way down to the point where he was deciding which faith church we were to get married in. Now, I had to take a really tough stance, because actually the result, had I followed his direction, would have meant that my husband would have been, and my husband's family would have been really, really sad about the experience. And this was my wedding day.
Yeah.
And it was my husband's, it was our wedding day. This was about us. And I had to do a lot of reflecting about what was my future going to be. And the relationship with my father was actually one that I was hoping was going to be continuous. But actually, my future was my husband. And my future was actually the relationship with myself, my husband, and God. And that was the most important moment. And my dad was not going to have a say in that. And actually, my father didn't come to my wedding. And I had to be okay with that. And I was okay with that. And looking back, I am still okay with that decision. But it was a tough decision to make. And it was very hurtful, and there was a lot of pain, and I had a lot of anger for a number of years afterwards that I have now. I have now forgiven him, and he's no longer with us, but I have forgiven him. And, forgiveness is a very powerful space to be able to say, I forgive you. What you did wasn't okay, but I forgive you for it. So actually, I had to give myself authentic space to really think about what was my future. And I'd say that to any of you out there. If you've got a difficult decision to make, think about your future. Think forward 6 months. Think, the impact of this choice this way or this choice that way. What is it going to look like for me? What is it going to feel like for me in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time? And for me, actually, now it's my 25th wedding anniversary this year. I can't even believe, and I get choked again, because I know it's such a joyous place to be in, that I have been very lucky to have had these 25 years with married. I mean, it took him 7 years to sort himself out to actually propose to me.
That's how my late husband was, 7 years as well.
Yes, so 7 years of that. Are we going to? Are we not going to? And actually, I think that also adds beauty to the marriage.
Yeah.
So I say we did the 7-year itch before we got married, and maybe I don't know. Maybe you have a similar thought process, something you process afterwards about that time before. It's time before marriage.
Yeah, it was important to have that.
Yes,
I think
to work out how is this going to be. What is this? What do we really like together?
Yeah.
When it's good, when it's bad.
Yeah, because when you marry, then this is so right. You just know You don't have those doubts. People say, I was nervous, doubting, and I didn't have any of it.
No, absolutely.
So I think that's what those 7 years were important.
Yeah. And then when you step in that it's right.
Yeah.
And I feel very fortunate. I'm very blessed that I have 25 years. My children are excited about planning our 25th wedding anniversary. And I recognize that we're both women in a conversation now where we have different end experiences. And I think for me, and from a place of emotion, it's really important to say the things that actually might feel a bit awkward, because we come from different places here. So it's important that we address, what might be, the elephant that we see sitting in the room, because it might be here. And again, that's the same for all of us. When you're in that conversation and it's a bit difficult and we don't want to talk about whatever we don't want to talk about, we don't feel it might be right for the other person. We all have different life experiences, and actually addressing those awkwardnesses, if that's even a word, is important.
I totally agree with that. And just take you back to the mindset message, because when I read it, I really truly tried to go deep in it, and I read your story behind it. The growth that I had was in a quiet moment as well. And that was the time when I was meditating, and it was COVID, and my husband passed away just 3 weeks before first lockdown, and so I was alone. I was forced to be alone, and my son was in a cot asleep at that time, and I would be alone in the evenings, and used to hate being alone. But I embraced that loneliness, and I absolutely love being alone now. It's totally changed me. But that growth happened is accepting I am alone, and enjoying being alone, but also my mind completely opened up, because when I had the quiet moment, I had the opportunity to make a choice. What am I going to do with this now? And so what I've done has grown me almost as much as I'm old now, all those few years of studying and the growth has shaped me into the person I am now. And it's thanks to that quiet moment of realization. And so I completely agree. Growth happens in the quiet moments, and it's the moments as such we need to seek for, I would say, because we tend to be busy, and we tend to schedule things, and if we have nothing planned for the weekend, we tend to go and rush and see who's around, and or maybe I should do this, or maybe I do some more work, whatever people do. But sitting in the quiet and having the moment for yourself is something very special. And I look for it now all the time, and loads of magical things happen in that moment. So thank you for sharing all of that. We could be talking here all day. Everything is cooked and ready. Pasta is literally a minute away because it's fresh. It only takes a few minutes. I was going to tell you about this. This is not caviar, but next time you're here, I'll make sure to have caviar, because we established we love a bit of caviar. And who doesn't? Well, who doesn't? If they don't, that's great. More for us.
And maybe they've never had it.
Yeah, exactly.
The curiosity to try something new.
Exactly, curiosity. So these are balsamic vinegar caviar pearls.
Yummy.
And what I'll do, they slightly explode in your mouth with the saltiness of balsamic vinegar. So add a bit more balsamic vinegar. But what I'll do, I'll scatter them on your leaves, almost like a caviar. And you will see when you eat them, they'll just add a little extra joy, I say, to your salad.
How beautiful.
I'll serve your salad. Very simple salad. All it needed a little bit of acidity. So I added olive oil, salt, balsamic vinegar, but that dish will enjoy that acidity.
Beautiful.
Right. So I am going to take out the skillet out of the oven. Very hot and heavy.
That.
There we are.
Look at beautiful. And I can smell it.
The smells, right?
Glorious.
So, Cara, you being such a, may I call you colorful very
absolutely
rich
may.
personality you are. Is there anything else would you like to share with us? For example, how about, what is it, let's say people listen to this episode and say, what is the next step I should do to embrace emotion in the workplace? What would you advise?
The first thing is actually to acknowledge that you have an emotional culture in your workplace. And then it's all about identifying how you, your team, your people want to feel or not feel. And it's a simple question. It's a very simple question, but it feeds into every area of the business. How do you want your customers to feel? Simple question again. How do you want to feel during this transition? Simple question again. And it's about then identifying the emotions. And often that can be the trickiest space, identifying the emotions. So, there are emotional wheels. You can find emotional wheels where you can find emotions. There's a list of emotions that you might identify with. Or, if you are responsible for people, if you are, maybe head of culture, head of HR, engagement, actually, I find the easiest way to get people to talk about emotions is to show them the emotions in front of them.
Yeah.
So my work is all done through transformational play. So it's all done through a deck of cards. And it's about everybody having the deck of cards in front of them, the emotional culture deck. And from that space, they can identify with the cards and have conversations that are in a space that is comfortable. It's not me staring at you saying, how do you feel? How do you not want to feel? Because, we might want to take a few steps back in that situation. It's about actually talking to the space in front of you and then sharing your stories with your team. And that just builds better conversations.
That's a beautiful message. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. The meal is ready for you to enjoy. We'll have to wait a little bit. It's cooling down. Thank you so much for being here, Cara. It's been absolute pleasure. And I like that last one about you showing the emotion and sharing the stories. And I think through stories, people start connecting.
Absolutely.
And just as we did today. Thank you everyone for watching. I will add all the details of Cara's contacts on my website. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.